Welcome, dear listener, to the quietest hours of the night. As the world outside settles into silence, we invite you on a journey, not to a place you can find on any map, but to a realm of memory, myth, and profound mystery. Tonight we will explore the entire sweeping history of the greatest legend ever told, the story of the lost continent of Atlantis. Let your breathing slow, let the weight of the day drift away. Close your eyes if you wish, and picture not a history book, but a dreamscape, a world painted in the soft hues of imagination and the echoes of a forgotten past. We will move through this story not with the haste of scholars, but with the slow, deliberate pace of ocean currents, uncovering layer by layer, century by century, the enduring enigma of a civilization that sleeps beneath the sea. Our story begins, as all great stories of the Western world so often do, in the golden light of ancient Greece. It is the 4th century before the Common Era. In the city of Athens, amidst the buzz of the agora and the hallowed halls of the academy, a philosopher named Plato is shaping the very foundations of Western thought. And it is in two of his most fascinating dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, that the seed of our legend is planted. This is the only known origin point, the sole historical source from which every subsequent tale, every theory, and every desperate search has sprung. But Plato, in his wisdom, does not claim the story as his own. He layers it in a veil of antiquity, giving it a profound and mysterious pedigree. He tells us that the tale was brought to Athens generations earlier by a famed lawgiver and poet, Solon. And Solon, in turn, heard it during his travels to the ancient, dust-blown city of Sais in the land of Egypt. There, learned priests, keepers of records stretching back into a past the Greeks could scarcely conceive, shared a secret history with him. They chastised the Greeks as a youthful people, a people with no deep memory. "You remember but one deluge," they said, "though there have been many." And they spoke of a time 9,000 years before their own, a time when a mighty and powerful kingdom existed on an island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the gateway we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, an island set in the great encircling ocean, the Atlantic. They called it Atlantis. Let us pause here, in this moment, and imagine it as Plato describes. Do not see it as a fact, but as a vision. Picture an island larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, a land of incredible natural bounty, where fragrant forests grew tall and every kind of animal gentle and wild roamed free. The earth was rich with precious metals, and from it they mined a mysterious substance called orichalcum, a metal more precious than gold which glittered with a fire all its own. At the heart of this island was its capital, a marvel of engineering and sacred geometry. The city was built upon a great plain, protected to the north by majestic mountains. At its center was a low hill. Upon this hill the god-king Poseidon, founder of the Atlantean lineage, had settled with his mortal bride, Cleito. To protect her, he carved the hill into concentric rings, alternating rings of land and sea. He caused 2 springs to burst forth from the earth, one of warm water, the other of cold. The Atlanteans, his children, built upon this divine foundation. They carved great canals through the rings, creating a waterway for ships to sail directly to the city's heart. They built bridges and tunnels connecting the rings of land. The outer wall was clad in brass which gleamed like fire in the sunlight. The inner wall was covered in tin, shining bright and silvery, and the innermost wall surrounding the central citadel glittered with the red glow of orichalcum. Within this innermost sanctum stood the great temple of Poseidon and Cleito. Its exterior was covered in silver, its pinnacles in gold. The roof was made of ivory, carved and polished. Inside, a colossal statue of Poseidon stood in a chariot drawn by 6 winged horses, so vast it touched the temple ceiling. The walls were inscribed with the laws of the kingdom and the chronicles of the first kings. For generations, the people of Atlantis lived in accordance with these divine laws. They were a race of great virtue, of wisdom, and of harmony. They governed themselves with justice and viewed their wealth as a common good. They were, in Plato's telling, the ideal state. But, as is the way of all things, time worked its slow corrosion. The divine portion within them began to fade, diluted again and again through mortal generations, and the human nature of greed and power gained the upper hand. They were no longer able to bear their prosperity with grace. The noble spirit that once guided them was replaced by base ambition. The kings of Atlantis, once wise stewards, became arrogant tyrants, their hearts set on expanding their empire, on possessing all that lay before them. They built a great navy, an armada of ships beyond counting, and they set out from their ringed city, not as explorers but as conquerors. They subjugated the lands within the Mediterranean, bearing down upon the coasts of Africa and Europe. Their ambition was a fire that threatened to consume the ancient world. It is at this moment of supreme hubris that the story turns. The gods, watching from Olympus, saw the corruption of this once great people. They saw how the virtue of Atlantis had been extinguished by avarice and injustice, and so they convened a council to decide its fate. Zeus, father of the gods, determined that a punishment must be delivered, an example made, so that humanity would remember the consequences of its pride. And so, the legend tells us, the punishment was swift, absolute, and terrifying. There came a single, catastrophic day and night. The earth shook with a violence beyond comprehension. Great chasms tore the land asunder. Volcanic fires erupted from the depths, and then the seas rose. Tsunamis of unimaginable height and power rushed over the island, swallowing the shining rings, the temple of Orichalcum, the great palaces, and the fertile plains. In one terrible, convulsive event, the entire island of Atlantis was swallowed by the sea. It sank beneath the waves, vanishing forever from the sight of man. And here, most mysteriously of all, Plato's dialogue, the Critias, abruptly ends. The story is left unfinished, as if the cataclysm itself silenced the narrator. The lost continent was now truly lost, existing only as a phantom in a philosophical text. For centuries, that is where Atlantis remained, a dormant seed. The Romans, practical and world-weary, largely dismissed it as a fanciful Greek myth. Through the long sleep of the Middle Ages in Europe, Plato's works were forgotten in the West. Atlantis dreamt on, undisturbed. Then came the Renaissance, a reawakening. As the works of Plato were rediscovered and translated, the dream of Atlantis stirred once more. The legend found fertile ground in the minds of explorers and mystics. When the New World was discovered across the Atlantic, the question arose instantly in the hearts of men. Had they found it? Were the Americas the mountaintops of the sunken continent, all that remained of that vast lost kingdom? The Enlightenment saw thinkers like Sir Francis Bacon use Atlantis as a symbol for a utopian society, a new Atlantis of scientific and moral perfection. The legend was no longer just a story, it was an ideal. The 19th century brought the man who would transform the legend into a modern obsession, an American congressman and amateur scholar named Ignatius L. Donnelly, in his 1882 book, Atlantis, The Antediluvian World. He presented Atlantis not as a myth but as a historical fact. He argued it was the true cradle of all civilization, the source from which all ancient cultures, from the Egyptians to the Maya, sprang. He saw the world's flood myths as collective memories of Atlantis' destruction. Donnelly gave the legend a pseudo-scientific framework, and in doing so, launched 1,000 searches. The 20th and 21st centuries, with all their technological prowess, have taken up the search with fervor. Sonar has mapped the ocean floor. Satellites have scanned the Earth. And yet, no conclusive evidence of a sunken continent in the mid-Atlantic has ever been found. The scientific community, by and large, dismisses the literal existence of Plato's Atlantis. Geology tells us the tectonic plates do not allow for such a subsidence. Archaeology finds independent origins for the world's ancient civilizations. So, if it was not real, why does the dream persist with such power? Perhaps because the truth of Atlantis is not geological, but psychological and mythological. Many scholars now believe Plato was creating a powerful allegory, a noble lie. Atlantis was the perfect state that fell from grace, a cautionary tale about the inevitable decay that accompanies imperial overreach and moral corruption. It was a mirror for his own Athens, which had recently suffered a humiliating defeat in the Peloponnesian War, perhaps due to its own hubris. And yet, the human soul longs for a kernel of truth. Could the legend have been inspired by a real catastrophic event? The most compelling candidate is the monumental volcanic eruption on the Aegean island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, around 1600 BC. This eruption was one of the largest in human history. It utterly destroyed the sophisticated seafaring Minoan civilization on nearby Crete. The center of the island collapsed, forming a massive caldera that was instantly flooded by the sea. Tsunamis hundreds of feet high ravaged the coasts. The ash cloud blotted out the sun. This was a civilization, advanced and peaceful, wiped out in a single cataclysmic day and night. Is it possible that the memory of this real-world disaster, passed down through traders and storytellers for centuries, eventually found its way to Egypt and was woven into the tale that Solon heard? Other theories point to the Tartessos civilization in southern Spain, which vanished mysteriously, or to the slow submergence of Doggerland, a vast landmass that once connected Britain to mainland Europe. Perhaps Atlantis is not one memory but many, a collective human memory of lost lands, of great floods, of paradise found and then lost to the relentless sea. And so we return to where we began. Why does Atlantis call to us? It is more than a sunken city. It is a symbol of our own lost innocence, a hazy memory of a golden age. It represents humanity's boundless potential for creation and our tragic propensity for self-destruction. It is a warning that pride comes before a fall, and that even the greatest empires are, in the grand scale of geological time, fleeting. It is the ultimate what if, a question mark etched into the soul of our culture. As you drift towards sleep, let go of the need for an answer. Release the search. Instead, simply hold the image in your mind. See the great rings of the city, not in ruin, but in a state of perfect silent preservation. See the orichalcum glowing softly in the deep eternal twilight of the abyss. Hear the quiet hum of the ocean currents, where once there was the bustle of a great people. Atlantis is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a dream to be visited. It is a story that reminds us of the profound mysteries that still lie just beyond the edge of our understanding, waiting patiently in the dark, quiet depths. Let the waves of that great sleeping ocean rock you gently. Let the mystery of Atlantis be the lullaby that carries you into a peaceful and profound rest. You are safe, the world is quiet, and the dream continues. Good night.